Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at the process that it took me to make this mixed media right here. So I started off with a blank canvas and the idea that I really wanted to use the Death Tarot card. It's not an actual tarot card, but it's a scrapbook paper that looks like a tarot card. You can use your own tarot cards if that's what you have, but this is what I have, so that's what I used. And my next step in the process is just to get a bunch of stuff and bring it upstairs and kind of figure out what I want to do. I knew at this point I wanted to add gold leafing. So you can see here I'm using Modge Podge as the base. They do make specific gold leaf glue, but I already had Modge Podge, so I was just going to go ahead and use that. You can use the gold leaf glue. I find that Modge Podge works just as well. Again, just trying to use what I already have and kind of use up supplies that I already own. I'm using a popsicle stick to spread out the Modge Podge here, and I wanted to give it kind of like a spiky, um, my cat's meowing at me, a spiky, unique effect to it. So I'm just kind of using my finger to tailor it off into different areas here. And yours is going to look different depending on how you want it to look, but all the places the glue is, that's where the gold leaf is going to sit. I should also note that Modge Podge dries very quickly, so you want to work very quickly and use a thin layer. This is also not real gold leafing because that would be really expensive. It's imitation gold leaf, which you can buy on Amazon, and I'll link all my supplies down below. So once you have your gold leafing or imitation gold leafing, you lay it down on the glue and smooth it out. And it kind of looks like aluminum foil, and it's very, very thin and kind of be really picky and finicky to use. As you can see here, those little tiny pieces that fell off, and I was just kind of putting them down because I didn't want to waste them. So I used some more pieces that kind of broke off in a little bit here and just kind of laid it down for now. You don't have to worry about going over the spots that don't have glue because you'll see you're going to wipe it away once it's all dry. So here's some more of those pieces that just kind of fell off and I didn't want to throw them out, so I'm just reusing them. And then you have to wait for it to dry. I waited overnight, and here I'm just using one of my paint brushes to brush it off. You can use a makeup brush if that's what you have. Um, I wouldn't recommend using your fingers because that could pull off the gold leafing. You want something really soft. You can go to Dollar Tree and buy makeup brushes, or any paint brush will work if that's what you have around your house. And you just want to go very lightly over the gold leaf and moving away any of the excess that isn't glued down. And you can see at the top here, some of the glue dried. So I'm just going to go back over that in a little bit here with some more gold leafing. So when I place this card on top, not a lot of the gold leaf is showing. So I decided I want a little bit more gold leafing than that. Yeah, I was just kind of playing with the placement of it right now and just kind of seeing how much more I need to add. And it's entirely up to you if you can just add a little bit of gold leafing. There's also different types of gold leafing, so you can add different colors, like metallic colors. But I just went with the standard gold. And that top part there is the part that you can see the glue, but there was no gold leafing. It probably dried before the gold leaf was applied. That's the problem with working with Modge Podge. You have to work pretty quickly. And this little bottom corner there, I added way too much glue, and it was really hard to put the gold leafing down, so don't do that. You want to spread it thin. You can use your finger, or like I did, use a popsicle stick. If you use your fingers, it dries pretty quickly, and then you get to peel it off, which is kind of fun. And again, I'm just using some pieces that had fallen off or I swiped off when removing the other gold leafing. I'm not too worried about seeing that line in the middle because, as you saw before, you're not really going to see it once the card is in place. But that's something you want to keep in mind when you're putting the gold leafing down, that if you want to not have that line there, you're going to have to overlap some of your gold leafing. Just trying to work through the process and trying to think in my head where it makes sense to add more gold leaf. Your project is going to be completely different depending on what you want it to look like, but it's a general idea of how you use gold leafing, and it's really not difficult. I was just testing the glue for a second there to see if it was still wet, and it was. You can also just make artwork just out of like putting glue down and then adding the gold leaf and brushing it away. It sometimes makes a really cool abstract art piece that's kind of minimalistic. So I'm just repeating that process where I'm just brushing away the gold leafing after it's completely dried again. This was another day of letting it dry. Mod Podge doesn't need that long to dry, but I just wanted to really make sure it was dry. I also had a trash can right below my work surface so that I could just dump all this into the trash once I was done, because it does make a mess. So I was happy with the way the gold leaf looked now, so I'm going to place down my tarot card, even though it's not a real tarot card, and I'm going to again use some, I believe I used Modge Podge. And I bought these playing cards because I thought it would look really cool with the tarot card because I really like the Suicide King. But when they came in, they were a different color blue than what they look like online. This happens a lot with monitor settings and things like that. So I didn't end up using it. I'll probably use it in a future project. It also took a long time to come in because the package got lost. So this project was kind of held up all on these cards that I didn't even bother using. But that's kind of the process. As you can see, I really wanted to use it, but the blue in the death card and the blue on the playing card they just don't look right together. So I opted not to use it in the end. So this is kind of what I went for. I usually just place a bunch of things down and then take a photo of it and try and recreate that. I'll put the photo on my computer and then I'll place things in the same area or close to it on the photo on my computer. You don't have to take a photo of yours and put it on your computer. You can just keep it on your phone. But because I record it, I put it on my computer so that I can reference it while I continue to record. So here I am gluing down the Modge Podge. And again, you want to use Modge Podge for any paper material that you're using. If you use a different my cat's meowing at me again. If you use a different glue, it could sometimes wrinkle the paper and ruin it. So I definitely use a Modge Podge for any paper applications that you're trying to glue down. And because it curls the edges, I then get some of my things that I have sitting around and lay it on top of it to keep it kind of flattened and not curled up, because otherwise it's gonna dry curled up. So there's a cat toy, and I think I get like this little stationary Choco cat set. Yep, there it is. And then I just waited for that to dry, and some scissors because the edge there was still kind of coming up. And there I am taking them off. This was after it was dry. I know it looks like the same, but it's not. It was a couple hours later. This is actually an earring. I can't wear earrings. I have a metal allergy, which really stinks because I would love to have piercings. So I just kind of use my old earrings. I've tried multiple times. I kind of use my old earrings in mixed media now, and a lot of them I give away to my sister because she can have earrings and piercings. She actually has some piercings, and I'm so jealous of. But such is life. And I use the pliers to remove the earring back, and then I use an epoxy glue to glue everything down. It's the same epoxy glue that I recommend for all of my things. I use it in all of my mixed media. It works really well on different fabrics and textures. It works really well on metals, plastics, whereas sometimes a hot glue won't really stick to a plastic. The epoxy glue is one of the strongest glues, so it's definitely really good for metal, plastic, wood, anything like that. I do not recommend using it for paper, which is why I use the Modge Podge for the paper. I made that mistake once, and let's just say it was a disaster. So I'm just going to use Modge Podge for paper going forward. And the glue is called E6000. You can pick it up on Amazon, Walmart, at any craft store, really. Oh gosh, my cats are now sitting in the window, probably looking at the birds. Simon, leave your sister alone, baby. He likes to antagonize her. Simon, leave her alone. Goodness me, leave her alone. So these are just random things that I had in my art supplies that I tend to just grab a bunch of stuff and see what works and what doesn't. And that's when you saw the placement earlier. I decided that these were the things that I was gonna use, and everything else just gets put back away. I usually end up grabbing a ton of stuff and then only using a handful of it. Because sometimes once you see it on your piece, it just doesn't make sense anymore. This is a frame that I got at Goodwill, I think it was. And it is actually the last frame that I own, so I need to buy some more frames. I do take out the glass in all the frames that I use because canvas needs to breathe. So putting it behind glass is not a good idea. It'll actually create moisture and not really something that's recommended for paintings. I really love the way this ended up looking, and everyone that I've spoke to also really loves it, so I think it's going to sell really fast. That spider that you just saw there, that was also a pin that I'm cutting off the pin back with some cutting pliers. This is also currently up on my Etsy shop, so if you want to buy it, I'll add that link to the description below as well. I know it's a small, slow process, but this actually took a couple days for all drying and everything. Um, but this I just cut a lot of that out in editing. I bought those death moth charms and I really like them, and I haven't really used them much. Oh, this is I made a mistake here. These are like fabric flowers and they're made out of like almost feels like styrofoam. And I typically don't like to put them down before I put the top coat on because sometimes the top coat can ruin them and eat them up and degrade them. But I forgot that and I put the top coat on. But surprisingly, this time they stayed. But usually I don't add those until after I put the top coat on. But at this point, they were already glued down when I put the top coat on, so it was a little too late, and I just had to hope for the best. But the little black flowers are just adorable, and I love them. This ended up being, I believe, 8 by 10. I think that's what size it is. And it's just super cute, and I really like it. But I am partial to spooky things, so. I tried not to speed up this video too much so that you can see the whole process and what it's like. I did cut out some of the bits like the top coat and the drying because that just takes too long. But I hope this inspired you to make your own assemblage art mixed media and you learned some new things. And if you ever want to explore the worlds of mixed media, then you have a good basis if you watch my other videos. So here's the frame and me taking the glass out and just using the frame part. And I just kind of set it on top of it and then added a back to it and some wire and hooks to hang it. And here's the finished product. I hope you liked it. I loved making it and I think it looks amazing. Until next time, stay spooky, my friend.